Marcus Hale stepped out of the transport van and looked at the quiet street in front of him. It was early morning, but the air already felt strange. He had repaired teleportation accidents for almost 10 years, and he knew the feeling of a normal malfunction. But this was different. The wind moved in small, uneven waves, like the air was breathing. Even the sunlight looked slightly bent, as if reality was tired and trying to sit down. He walked toward the damaged teleport pad where the accident had happened. 2 officers stood nearby, but both looked confused rather than scared. Marcus asked them what they saw, but they only shook their heads and said the same thing. They didn't understand what had happened. They just heard a loud crack, like glass breaking under the ground, and then the platform started glowing in strange colors. Marcus kneeled beside the pad and placed his hand on the metal surface. A vibration ran through his fingers, soft at first but then growing sharper, almost like a heartbeat. Teleport pads were not supposed to vibrate. Ever. Marcus frowned and checked the energy meter. The numbers kept jumping, constantly changing, never staying still for even 1 second. His stomach tightened. Something was twisting the energy flows inside the grid. Something powerful. He switched on his repair device, but the moment he pressed the button, the screen flickered and turned white for a second. A cold wind rushed past his face even though no wind was blowing. He felt a pressure in the air, like someone invisible was watching him from very close. Then the ground moved. Not a normal shake. Not like an earthquake. It folded. Just for a second, a small section of the street pulled upward, bending like a piece of paper someone tried to fold in half. Marcus gasped and stepped back, heart racing. The folded part snapped back to normal, leaving only a faint crack line on the road. The officers behind him shouted in shock. One of them asked Marcus what that was, but he didn't answer. He didn't know what to say. Marcus had studied teleport physics all his life. He had seen hundreds of broken pads. He had fixed grids that exploded, collapsed, and even melted. But he had never seen space fold like that. Teleport accidents did not behave this way. This was something else. Something deeper. Something alive. He forced himself to breathe slowly and leaned forward again. His repair tool buzzed in his hand, shaking as if it was afraid. The energy field around the pad glowed softly, then almost went dark, then brightened again. Like it was pulsing. Marcus tapped the stabilizer line, trying to reconnect the grid. The tool sparked, sending a small burst of blue light into the air. The pad hissed, and the air above it shimmered like hot metal. The light twisted into a spiral and then stretched into a thin line that disappeared into nothing. A tear. A small one. Like a cut in the air. Marcus froze. Tears did not happen unless something was pushing from the other side. He swallowed, trying not to panic. He had to close it before it grew. A spatial tear could spread quickly and damage everything around it. He aimed the tool carefully and activated the seal mode. A blue wave of light spread out from the device, soft and slow. The tear flickered, pulling back for a moment. Then the ground shook again. This time harder. The folded space effect repeated, but wider, almost a whole meter of the street lifted, twisted, and dropped back. A mailbox at the corner stretched sideways for a second, then snapped into its normal shape like rubber returning to its place. Marcus felt sweat on his forehead. This was not a malfunction. This was not random. Something was trying to push through the teleport grid, something big enough and strong enough to bend the world around it. He tightened his grip on the tool and pushed more power into the seal. The tear closed halfway, but then the device beeped loudly in warning. The energy inside the pad was fighting back. His stabilizer meter flashed red, showing unstable levels rising faster than he could handle. Marcus cursed under his breath. If the pad went critical, the entire block could twist inward. He tried again, pushing the tool harder, but the air grew heavier. A strange hum filled the street, low and deep, almost like a voice whispering from far away. The sound made the hair on his arms stand straight. Marcus stepped back, breathing fast. He looked around. The street lamps bent slightly, as if leaning toward the pad. The shadows on the ground moved even though nothing was moving above them. Reality itself felt loose, like the world was a thin sheet waiting to tear. The officers shouted at Marcus, asking if they should evacuate the area. He opened his mouth to answer, but before he could speak, the teleport pad lit up in a blinding white burst. The light stretched upward like a tower and then twisted sideways, bending into impossible angles. Marcus shielded his eyes. The world around him bent for a heartbeat, buildings leaning, sky warping, ground curling, and then everything snapped back to normal. Except it wasn't normal. Not anymore. Marcus stared at the pad, feeling cold fear spreading through his chest. The tear was gone, but the energy remained unstable. Something had touched this world. Something had pushed through. For the first time in many years, Marcus Hale felt truly afraid. Whatever caused this was not finished. And he knew, deep inside, this was only the beginning. Marcus hurried back to the teleport regulation center, his steps fast, almost shaky. He kept replaying the scene in his mind, the street folding, the tears stretching, the strange humming sound that felt like a voice. He tried to push the thoughts away, but they clung to him like shadows. Inside the center, dozens of engineers worked around glowing screens. The noise level was high, but the fear in the room felt even louder. Marcus walked straight to the main control desk, where Director Rowan stood with a deep frown on her face. She looked at Marcus as if she already knew something was wrong. "What did you see?" she asked. Marcus hesitated. He didn't know how to explain something he barely understood. The pad, it wasn't just broken. Something was pushing through it. I think the space around it was bending. Rowan's eyes narrowed. Bending how? Like folding, Marcus said quietly. As if reality was soft. A few engineers around them stopped working and stared. Rowan exchanged a tense look with her assistant. Then she walked Marcus toward the massive holographic map on the wall. The screen showed the whole city, with small dots marking teleport pads. Some dots were glowing red. Some were flickering. Some were pulsing. Marcus felt his throat go dry. How many? Too many, Rowan whispered. And all in the last 30 minutes. Before Marcus could speak, the map started glitching. Several red dots began moving, not blinking randomly, but shifting locations as if the anomalies were crawling across the grid. The room went silent. Even the machines seemed to hold their breath. "That's impossible," an engineer whispered. Marcus stared at the map, heart beating fast. Teleport anomalies did not move on their own. Something inside the teleport network was alive. Then the alarm blared. A bright red light flashed above them, and a robotic voice echoed across the room. Severe teleport malfunction detected in District 12. Spatial risk high. Structural risk severe. Rowan shouted orders as people rushed around the room. She turned to Marcus, her face pale. "We need you there now. This one is growing faster than anything we've seen." Marcus grabbed his toolkit, though his hands trembled slightly. He had faced dangerous accidents before, but nothing like this. As he ran out of the building, he felt something deep in his chest, a warning his instincts were screaming. This was not a malfunction. This was a message. When he reached District 12, he stopped moving for a few seconds. His eyes widened. The entire street looked frozen, as if time had paused mid-frame. A couple stood with their arms halfway raised, a man on a bicycle hovered with one foot in the air, and a delivery drone hung motionless above the road. But that wasn't the strangest part. Objects were not just frozen, they were twisted. The streetlight pole curved in a spiral shape. A floating traffic sign was stretched into a thin, long ribbon, like someone had pulled it like rubber. Even the shadows on the ground were bent, bending in directions they shouldn't. Marcus walked forward slowly, careful not to disturb anything. The silence felt heavy, thick, almost painful. He could hear something faint, a soft whispering sound, like voices repeating broken words. "Help! Help! Help!" He froze. The voices did not sound human. They sounded like echoes, like someone far away trying to speak through a broken speaker. Marcus swallowed hard and switched on his scanner. The screen filled with strange symbols and rapidly shifting numbers. He had never seen readings like these before. Space was not only unstable, it was looping. Time was replaying tiny fragments over and over. He stepped deeper into the distortion zone. The frozen people didn't move, but their eyes flickered for a split second, as if reality was trying to catch up and failing. Marcus felt a cold wave climb up his spine. He kneeled near the teleport pad at the center of the street. Or what used to be a pad. Now it looked like a flattened metal circle stretched into a long oval. It pulsed with a faint red glow, as if it was breathing slowly. The scanner beeped sharply. Marcus looked at the screen. A single line of text appeared. Tear forming below surface. His heart sank. That meant this was not a leftover tear from the last incident. This was a new one. And it was growing beneath the city, beneath the ground people walked on every day. Marcus lifted his tool, hoping to stabilize it, but the moment he activated it, the ground shook. Not violently, slowly, like something large was turning in its sleep under the earth. Then he heard the humming again. Deep. Heavy. Almost like a giant heartbeat. He looked around quickly. The frozen objects started trembling, shaking slightly as the hum grew louder. A parked car bent inward, as if pulled by invisible hands. The drone in the air twisted sideways. The shadows on the ground shifted in different directions. Marcus stepped back, panic tightening his chest. The tear was close, very close. He activated the stabilizer at full power. Blue light spread around him in a wide circle. The tremors slowed. The twisted car straightened slightly. The humming grew softer. For a moment, Marcus thought he could stop it. Then the stabilizer device beeped sharply and shut off. The tear reacted instantly. A massive ripple shot through the street, bending the ground like a wave. The frozen people slid slightly across the surface, not moving on their own, just dragged by the shifting space. A long crack formed across the road, glowing with a faint white light. Marcus stumbled backward. Something was coming through the tear. Not a monster. Not a creature. But pressure. Force. A will strong enough to push reality aside. Marcus knew then that this was not an accident. Something on the other side of the teleport system was trying to enter their world. And every malfunction, every tear, every bending street was just the beginning. He grabbed his tools and ran out of the zone, breath shaking, sweat dripping down his face. He didn't stop until he reached a safe point. Then he looked back at the twisted street, glowing softly in the dim light. Marcus whispered to himself, voice trembling, "This is getting worse." He was right. Much worse. Marcus returned to the teleport regulation center with shaking hands. His clothes were dusty, his face pale, and his eyes unfocused. He kept seeing the twisted street in his mind. The frozen people. The bending shadows. The humming sound that felt like a warning. He had seen teleport accidents before, but this felt like something waking up under the city. Inside the center, everything was chaos. Engineers rushed from one terminal to another. Screens flickered with unstable data. The holographic map now showed not a few red dots, but dozens. Some were glowing so bright they almost drowned the map in red. Director Rowan pushed through the crowd and grabbed Marcus by the shoulders. What happened out there? Marcus stared at her, trying to find the right words. The tear. It's not local anymore. It's moving. Growing. And whatever is on the other side is pushing harder. Rowan's expression hardened. She pulled him toward the main console. Look. Marcus looked at the map, and felt the same cold fear again. Entire districts were lighting up. Teleport pads were failing one after another. Some zones were marked with a pulsing white circle, the system's highest warning level. It meant the space in those areas was starting to warp. Marcus whispered, "It's spreading." "We know," Rowan said quietly, "but we don't know how to stop it." A young engineer turned from another screen, panic clear in her voice. "Director, the energy signature is repeating. It's following a pattern, like it's searching for something." Marcus frowned. "Searching?" "Yes," she said. "It's not random. It's scanning." Marcus felt a sinking feeling in his chest. The tear wasn't expanding blindly. It was acting with intention. Purpose. Intelligence. This was not just a force, it was a presence. Suddenly, the lights flickered. The entire building vibrated for a moment, soft but noticeable. Several people froze, staring at the ceiling. Then the holographic map glitched. Not a normal glitch. The map distorted, bent, twisted sideways, as if the projection itself was being pulled by an invisible hand. The glowing red zones stretched like they were melting. Rowan shouted, "Everyone back!" But Marcus stepped forward, eyes wide. The distorted map wasn't just glitching, it was showing something. Something new. A symbol. A circular pattern forming beneath the red zones. A pattern that looked like overlapping rings. A gate. Or a doorway. His heart pounded. It's forming a shape, a structure, beneath the teleport grid. Rowan stared at him. A structure of what? Marcus whispered, "Connection." Before Rowan could respond, the alarm blared again. A voice echoed through the room, "Major spatial disruption detected in District 9. Teleport grid collapsing. Probability of structural inversion high." Marcus didn't wait. He grabbed his bag and ran toward the exit. Rowan shouted after him, "Marcus, wait for backup." But he didn't stop. He couldn't. If these events were connected, and he knew they were, then District 9 might reveal the next piece of this puzzle. And they were running out of time. He reached District 9 within minutes. As he stepped onto the main road, his breath caught in his chest. The place looked impossible. Buildings leaned at angles like someone had softened them. The road twisted into a gentle spiral, as if trying to curl inward. Cars were stuck halfway into the ground, not crashed, but merged, like the road had swallowed half their bodies. And in the center of the street stood something new. A floating circular ripple in the air. A ring of trembling light, about the size of a doorway. The edges of the ring moved like liquid, constantly shifting and spreading small waves. Reality looked thin around it, almost see-through. Marcus approached slowly, feeling the air grow thicker with each step. The hum returned, louder this time, vibrating through his bones. His heartbeat synced with it, pounding harder and faster. He raised his tool and scanned the ring. The device beeped 3 times. Unknown structure. Spatial pressure extreme. Entity presence possible. Marcus took a shaky breath. Entity presence. That was new. That was terrifying. Then the ring pulsed. A wave of force hit the street. The buildings bent inward slightly, like bowing toward the ring. The cars tilted. The air twisted. Marcus stumbled back. No, no, no. The ring widened, stretching like a mouth opening. A faint silhouette appeared beyond the rippling surface, not a creature, not a human, just a shape, blurry and tall, moving slowly. A cold fear gripped his chest. Something was coming through. The shape moved closer, pressing against the surface from the other side. The ring stretched with it, almost growing. The humming deepened. The ground around Marcus began to crack in thin lines. He activated his stabilizer and pointed it at the ring. A bright blue beam shot out, hitting the edge of the tear. The ring flickered violently. The silhouette inside paused. For a moment, the street grew still. Marcus pushed more power into the stabilizer. His arms trembled. The device heated up. The ring shrank slightly. But the silhouette moved again, this time faster. The ring pulsed with angry red light. The stabilizer beeped a warning. Energy overload imminent. Marcus shouted out loud even though no one was near him. "Come on! Hold!" The device sparked. Smoke rose. The blue light flickered and died. The ring expanded in an instant, twice the size. The silhouette pressed closer, clearer, taller, almost human-shaped but distorted by the unstable space. A shockwave blasted outward, sending Marcus crashing onto the road. Dust flew everywhere. The world spun for a moment. He gasped for breath and forced himself to get up, his body shaking. He looked at the ring again. It was pulsing. Growing, learning, and the silhouette behind it stepped closer. Marcus felt true terror for the first time in his life. He backed away, whispering to himself, "We're not dealing with an accident. We're dealing with something that wants to break through." The ring glowed brighter. The humming deepened. And Marcus ran, because he knew, without a doubt, that whatever was pushing through would not stop. Not until the entire city folded in on itself. Marcus ran until the glowing ring behind him disappeared from sight. His breath came fast and uneven, his steps stumbling over the cracked ground. He felt like the air itself wanted to hold him back, like the space around him was warping in slow waves. The deeper he went into District 9, the stranger everything felt. Windows stretched longer than normal, street signs tilted as if trying to read themselves, and even colors seemed slightly wrong, like someone had changed the world settings. He reached the edge of the distortion zone and leaned against a tilted wall, trying to catch his breath. His heart beat hard, too loud inside his chest. His mind kept replaying the image of the tall shape inside the ring. It didn't move like a creature. It didn't move like a machine. It moved like something that had never known the limits of a world with rules. Something wanted to come through. He grabbed his communicator and contacted the Teleport Regulation Center. Rowan's voice exploded through the speaker before he could speak. "Marcus, we lost your signal. What's happening there? Your location data keeps shifting." Marcus swallowed hard. "Rowan, it's worse than we thought. The tear, it's forming into a doorway. And something is pushing through it." Silence hung for half a second. Then Rowan spoke softly. "Describe it." "I can't," Marcus said. "It's tall, wrong-shaped, like it doesn't match our space. And the tear is growing around it like it wants to help it come through." He heard Rowan curse under her breath. "Get out of there now. Come back to the center. We need you." Marcus looked back toward the distortion zone. The hum was still faint, but he could feel it even from here, vibrating through the ground. "Rowan, this thing isn't staying in District 9. It's spreading." "We know," Rowan said. "2 more districts just lit up. And Marcus, there's something else." Marcus closed his eyes, bracing himself. "Tell me." "The anomalies are connecting. Forming lines. Like veins." Marcus felt a chill crawl up his spine. He didn't respond. He didn't need to. He already knew what she meant. The city wasn't breaking randomly. It was being prepared. He turned toward the center and began walking fast, almost running. Each step felt heavier than the last. People were gathering on the edges of the unstable zones, confused but unaware of the danger. Some filmed the distorted streets with their phones. Others whispered about strange sounds they'd heard in the night. Marcus wanted to shout at them to run, to hide. But he knew it wouldn't help. Not yet. He had to understand what the anomaly wanted. When he reached the Teleport Regulation Center, the atmosphere was even worse than before. Engineers yelled across the room, alarms flashed constantly, and the massive holographic map now showed bright, glowing lines stretching across the city like a giant spiderweb. Rowan rushed toward him, eyes wide with fear. "Look at this pattern." Marcus stared at the map. The lines connecting the anomalies curved inward, all pointing toward the same location. The center of the city. The heart of the teleport grid. Marcus felt his throat tighten. "It's creating a central point." "A convergence," Rowan said. "If it succeeds, the whole city might collapse inward." The room fell silent except for the alarms. Marcus forced himself to think. He didn't know why the presence behind the tier wanted to open a massive gateway, but he understood one thing clearly. It was using the teleport network like a skeleton. And now it was pulling the bones together. He turned to Rowan. "I have to go to the central grid core." Rowan grabbed his arm. "That's suicide. The anomalies are strongest there." "I know," he said. "But that's where the tier will open fully. If we don't stop it now, we lose the whole city." Rowan stared at him for a long moment. Then she released his arm slowly. "Take a support drone. And Marcus, be careful. We don't know what's waiting for you." Marcus nodded and headed toward the exit. Outside, the city felt tense, as if holding its breath. The sky above flickered with faint, thin lines, like cracks spreading across the air itself. People looked up nervously, pointing, whispering. Marcus reached the central grid tower after 10 tense minutes. The tower stood tall, but it looked wrong. The metal surface bent in and out like slow breathing. The windows stretched into teardrop shapes. The ground around the base rippled softly. He walked inside, his boots crunching over broken tiles. The lights flickered in different colors, blue, red, purple, as if the electricity didn't know what reality it belonged to. Marcus stepped into the main chamber, and froze. The central teleport core floated above the ground, glowing white-hot. Normally, it sat in a stable ring structure. Now the ring had melted, twisted into long curved shapes that drifted like slow-moving ribbons. The core pulsed like a beating heart. And beneath it, a distortion was forming. A swirling whirlpool of space. A tear much larger than the one in District 9, its edges moving like soft flames. The hum filled the chamber, deep and slow, making the walls vibrate. Marcus scanned it quickly. Entity presence. Confirmed. Spatial merge level. Critical. Gateway completion. 42%. He felt the blood drain from his face. 42%. It was building a doorway big enough to swallow the city. He activated his stabilizer device. Blue light burst out, forming a field around him. The tier reacted instantly. The swirling slowed. The hum deepened. Then something unexpected happened. The tier spoke. Not in words. Not in language. But a sound filled Marcus's mind, like a whisper made of memories, echoes of people he'd never met, places he'd never been. A feeling of someone reaching out. Searching. Marcus staggered back, clutching his head. The core above him pulsed harder, sending bright waves through the room. The tier stretched inward, forming a long, thin shape. A hand. A long, distorted hand made of bending space reached out through the tear, fingers stretching like shadows. Marcus froze, breath stuck in his throat. Another hand appeared. Then part of an arm. The entity was no longer waiting. It was entering. Marcus lifted the stabilizer and shouted, "Not here. Not today." He fired a full-power burst at the tear. Blue light clashed with the swirling white glow. The chamber shook. Tiles cracked. The walls bent inward. The entity's hands trembled, pulling slightly back. But the tear didn't close. It grew larger. Energy exploded outward, sending Marcus flying backward. He crashed against the wall, pain shooting up his spine. His vision blurred, and for a moment all he could hear was the hum, deep, endless, alive. He forced himself to stand. He looked at the tear. The entity was closer now. Closer than ever. And Marcus knew one terrible truth. He had run out of time. Marcus stood on shaking legs, facing the tear as it grew wider in the center of the chamber. The twisted hands of the entity pushed farther into the room, stretching like dark ribbons made of bending space and broken light. The air itself trembled around them, making the floor ripple in small waves that crawled under Marcus's boots. His stabilizer device lay on the ground, cracked, flickering, almost dead. He knew he couldn't rely on it anymore. The tear had grown stronger, learned faster, and adapted to every one of his attempts to stop it. Behind the swirling light, he could see a larger shape forming, something tall, thin, and impossible to understand. Every time the shape moved, reality around it bent like soft cloth. He needed more power. Marcus ran to the main console on the left side of the chamber. The screens were flickering with warnings and unreadable symbols. The teleport core floated above him, glowing brighter with every passing second. If he could connect the stabilizer signal to the core, maybe he could send a stronger pulse, one powerful enough to force the tear to close. Or maybe he would destroy the entire building. Or the entire city. He didn't have time to worry. He pulled open the panel under the console and began ripping wires from their sockets. Sparks flew. The lights flickered. A loud alarm began ringing through the chamber. The entity reacted. The long hands stretched toward Marcus more quickly, like shadows reaching for a frightened flame. The hum grew louder, deeper, vibrating through his chest. Marcus ducked behind the console, breathing fast as the air bent above him. He connected the last wire, and the console lit up with a blinding white flash. The entire chamber shook. The teleport core pulsed, sending waves of energy through the room that made every metal surface vibrate. Marcus grabbed the stabilizer, even though it was half broken, sparks falling from its side. He pressed it against the console and entered an override code. He didn't know if it would work. He didn't know if he would survive. The stabilizer lit up, much brighter than before. The core pulsed again. The tier screamed. Not a real scream, not a human sound, but a deep ripping vibration that tore through the room like an earthquake in the air. The entity's hands pulled back slightly, edges flickering. Marcus aimed the stabilizer at the tier and activated the pulse. A giant wave of blue light exploded outward. The tier shook violently. The swirling edges bent inward, collapsing slightly, and the shape behind it twisted like a broken reflection in water. For a moment, Marcus felt hope. Then everything went wrong. The pulse overloaded. A second explosion of energy shot upward, hitting the teleport core directly. The core flashed bright white, its glow expanding into a sphere of energy above the chamber. Marcus stared at it in horror as cracks of light spread across its surface. "Not now," he whispered. "Please not now." The core exploded. A massive burst of force hit Marcus and threw him across the chamber. He crashed into the far wall, the impact knocking the air out of his lungs. Dust and broken metal rained around him. Everything sounded distant, as if he was underwater. He forced his eyes open. The tear had grown bigger. Much bigger. The entity's full arm was through now, stretching almost to the floor. Its shape was shifting, changing, searching for a form that could exist in this world. Its fingers touched the ground, and the floor cracked in perfect straight lines that spread outward like roots. The room twisted around the tear, walls bending inward like they were being pulled into it. Marcus dragged himself to his feet, coughing, dizzy, vision blurry. He looked around desperately. The stabilizer device was lying near the broken console, but it was completely dead now. He had nothing left. Nothing but himself. He closed his eyes for a moment, trying to think. The teleport core was destroyed, but the central power conduit still ran beneath the floor. If he could overload the entire network, just once, he might generate a shockwave powerful enough to force the tear to collapse on itself. But it would destroy the entire teleport system across the city. It might injure thousands. But if he did nothing, the entity would enter their world fully. And the city wouldn't survive anyway. Marcus crouched near the floor panel, tearing it open with his bare hands. His fingers bled as he pulled metal aside. Sparks snapped near his wrists. Heat burned his palms. He ignored everything and reached the glowing conduit lines beneath the floor. They pulsed with unstable energy, flowing in unpredictable waves. He connected the final wire, his last hope, and the entire chamber lit up with a bright red glow. The network began to overload. The floor shook violently. The tier flickered. The entity paused, as if sensing the danger. Marcus shouted over the roar of energy, "You don't belong here." The tier pulsed aggressively, like a heartbeat fighting back. The entity's head-like shape pushed closer through the swirling light. Marcus forced all his remaining strength into the connection, pushing the overload to its limit. Lights burst, walls cracked, and the ground trembled as if the whole tower was about to collapse. Then, a final explosion of white energy erupted through the chamber. The shockwave hit the tier dead center. The swirling edges collapsed inward. The entity snapped back violently, its long arms twisting into fragments of light. The tier screamed one last time. And imploded. Silence. Dust fell through the air. The chamber flickered with faint sparks. The teleport core was gone. The walls were cracked. The floor was broken. But the tear was sealed. Marcus fell to his knees, breathing hard, body shaking. His vision faded in and out. The world blurred around him. He heard distant alarms, distant shouting, distant footsteps running toward him. But he didn't move. He smiled weakly, whispering to himself, "It's over, for now." He didn't know if the entity could return. He didn't know if the tier might open again someday. But he had saved the city. And for Marcus Hale, teleport repairman, that was enough.